To understand whether these values are objective or subjective, we need to ask a deeper question. Why do we question our own desires in the first place? And like a crime scene, everything will make sense at the end of this exploration. Welcome to the Philosophy in Real Life podcast, where we strive to live meaningful lives by pursuing truth and unmasking the lies in our culture. I'm your host, Carlos Santos, a philosophy PhD from Spain. Welcome to Season 2, The Ethics of Desire. Let's continue our discussion. So, what we could say is that as human beings, we are full of desires. Everywhere you look, there you find an advice or a saying or something or an opinion that basically consists of follow your heart, chase your dreams, do what makes you happy. But here's the problem. Which desire am I supposed to follow? Because honestly, if you really think about yourself, I think of myself, I want many things and they don't always fit together. I want to eat fast food all the time, but I also want to be healthy. I want to devour a whole pizza, but I also want to look like Cillian Murphy. Or I want total freedom with my time, but I also want a family or a meaningful career. So as you can see, the heart is a factory of endless desires. You will have more and more desires. I love a quote, a Bible verse from Ecclesiastes that says the following: "The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing." So put simply, we have an infinite supply of desire. There is an intrinsic restlessness in our human condition because we are fundamentally pervaded by desires of all kinds. But here's what's really interesting about this topic. Even though we are pulled in all these directions, we don't treat every desire as equal. We actually evaluate them. We discriminate among these desires to determine what is actually a superior desire compared to others, right? And that ability to evaluate our desires, that is a deeply human ability. It's one of the things that actually sets us apart from other species. This idea of this reflectiveness that we have. And we take this for granted, but it's actually a fundamental feature of being a human being in our behavior. And many times when I discuss about this topic, a lot of people take this for granted. It's like, oh yeah, we are like another species. We're just another animal. It's like, okay, if human beings are just, this is what I will say. If we are part of the animal kingdom, oh man, we are such a weird animal compared to other animals in terms of this moral capacity or moral reflectiveness. Because think about it. If a lion eats a man, we do not put the lion on trial. We do not call the lion bad for wanting to eat a human or for eating a human. But if a human eats another human, oh boy, that is a problem, because that person doesn't just face judgment in court. We also, attention here, we also morally condemn that person. We also accuse that person of something evil because we might argue they gave into a desire they should have resisted, basically. See? So even in the way we react towards injustice or cases like this, we understand that people have moral agency about the actions or about their desires, and we morally condemn people when they do not resist the desires that we deem they should have resisted, or desires that we deem as evil or quite problematic to have. Now, a helpful framework to understand these desires is the division of desires by an American philosopher called Harry Frankfurt. And Harry Frankfurt, he wrote an article, very good actually, you can find it on Google. It was titled Freedom of the Will and the Concept of a Person. And he distinguishes between first-order desires and second-order desires. So there's a first-order desire and second-order desire. Let's try to understand this. So the first-order desire is a desire to do or to have something, right? So for example, think of the desire, I want to eat. So it's something that in a way you find in yourself. It's like body based almost, like you feel the urge, the biological urge to eat something or to drink something. And this corresponds, roughly speaking, to what we call in the episode 1, biological desires. And this is rooted in survival, reproduction, pleasure, dopamine, and things like that. But Harry Frankfurt distinguished another desire, which is the second order desire. And this is a desire that only human beings have. Because the first order desire is something that animals also possess, but the second order desire is exclusive to human. So attention here. So how do we define second order desires? An easy definition is something like this. So a desire about a desire. So a second order desire is a desire about a desire. Basically, wanting to want something or not wanting to want something. Example, I don't want to be the kind of person who wants revenge, right? So, or for example, the typical, I don't want to smoke. So I find in myself that I have this natural proclivity or inclination to smoking or to wanting to smoke. So I don't want to feel that my body wants to smoke. That would be another way of putting it. So as you can say, it's a desire about another desire. I desire not to have the desire of smoking. That's another way of saying it. So he doesn't call them like this, but we could call these desires metabiological desires, because it's beyond the biology, because it's something that rises above biological desires as a way of judge. Okay, so that's why we're calling them metabiological desires. Meta is basically beyond. Okay, so it's beyond, or beyond something. And this basically corresponds to reflective or moral. Now, so our biological desires, such as hunger, thirst, or wanting pleasure, a body-based pleasure, they have, in a way, an obvious origin. They come from our bodies, from the machinery of flesh and bone. A hungry man wants food because, quite simply, his body demands it. Biology, in this case, is boss, and that's that. But then, something unexpected happens, because we discover in ourselves another kind of desire. Desires that don't just obey biology, but actually rise up and start judging these biological desires. And these aren't just animal cravings. They are what we might call, as I said before, but metabiological desires. Desires that question and criticize the raw impulses we have in our biology. Because nobody wonders why a hungry man looks for food and eats. But we do wonder why a human being, despite being hungry, chooses not to eat. Or we have yet to find a lion who has gone on a hunger strike. But we have found many humans who have gone on a hunger strike for a moral reason, such as bringing social justice, for example. And this basically shows us that what makes us uniquely humans is the fact that we have metabiological desires that might make us do the opposite of our biological desires. Because, for example, we see that our metabiological hunger for justice is more important than our biological hunger for food. And so as you can see, these desires that are, we could call them moral desires of some sort. You know, we have these desires that aligns us with something superior than just biology. A long time ago, I had a conversation with a friend and he told me, oh, why not do this? It's natural. We were watching a movie and there was a display of nudity or something like that. And I fast forward the movie. And my friend who was from university, he was a classmate. He was just quite hippie-like type of person, like, hey, it's all chill, you know, like, let's just love one another, let's love the earth and all of that. And he told me, why did you fast forward the scene, the sex scene? And I said to him, this was after we finished the movie, because it was in my house. And I said, well, because what you pay attention to has an effect in you, you know? And he said, but it's natural. It's natural, like meaning it just happens in nature. But I said the biggest characteristic of human beings is that we do not do what is natural. We all the time, in fact, oppose our natural inclinations to align ourselves with something superior than what is just natural, right? And we could go on a discussion on nudity and all of that, but that's not the point. The point here is that very often we overlook this dimension. But if you really think about it, human beings are all the time opposing or fighting their inner urges or biological desires that are based in the principle of pleasure, and that's that. And they sacrifice these urges in order to live by a higher principle, a moral principle that correspond to these metabiological desires. So in a way, what distinguishes us from other species or animals is our ability to live by a standard beyond our biology. So basically, human beings are entertained all the time in doing what is not natural or what is not just the easiest response or just following a biological urge, so to speak. And with this, as you can see, we are approaching the topic of human beings as moral agents, okay? As moral agents. Now, in the next episode, we will have a discussion group. Like we're going to have a discussion episode about these ideas to understand them more fully. Okay, so I will discuss this idea with Tristan and Santi. You can keep following these ideas with the companion guide. You have the QRs there to scan them and to catch up if you haven't watched the previous episodes. And then in episode 5, we will explore more fully the main characteristics of the second order desires or metabiological desires to see clearly what they entail and what that means for our study of the ethics of desire. Because I feel like so far, what we have covered, that's plenty to chew on and to reflect on. Okay, so I hope that was meaningful enough, the episode, and I think that we are just going into deep waters, but that's the fun of it, like how to transform our lives according to what is true. So thank you for joining, and until next time.